The Metropolitan Planning Strategy, it says, must move away from regulation as the primary means of achieving planning outcomes. Now, to me, that really sums up where this Metropolitan Strategy discussion paper is coming from. How can it put forward what a discussion paper in this kind of framework should put forward? That is, a series of well-considered, well-researched options with lots of information supporting them, analysing key issues, presenting considered options, and looking at serious implementation measures in the context of an overall long-term vision for Melbourne linked to a series of implementation themes and policies. Metropolitan plans or strategies are very important. Where they're done well, they affect the future of cities. Planning and planning decisions take place according to a long-term strategic set of objectives. They're long-term and they're bipartisan, and there are some very good examples of that kind of process, and the cities that have that long-term overall strategic planning identify the key issues, where they're going, alternatives, and how they're going to achieve that kind of vision and plan. They prosper. Where you don't have that, you have everybody after their chop, particularly if they've got a vested interest in it. So it's a free-for-all, it's a bun fight. And that's what we're seeing in Melbourne now as never before. Developers are putting forward their own ambit claims on everything, on height, on type of development, on where it's going to be. They've had an incredibly powerful influence on the new zones, and they love this kind of anarchic, no rules environment. They whinge about it, but ultimately they love it because they just keep upping the ambit. They just keep coming in with ambit claims, and even if they get knocked back a little bit, which under this government they usually don't anymore. Usually they'd put in a kind of 16-storey or 20-storey tower and they'd get a couple of stories knocked off and they'd go laughing to the nearest wine bar with $200 champagne, drinking about how dumb the government was, because they still got more than they really ever wanted. Strategic plans for cities are the proper province of governments. They presume a strong role for government. They presume that the government plans with communities, with business and so on, but fundamentally it's a government activity. You don't give over strategic planning for a city to BHP or the Property Council. Government, it implies a strong role for government, and yet we have a strategic discussion paper for the Melbourne Strategy accepting that there should not be a strong role for government. There's an extraordinary contradiction and admission that really condemns the whole strategic planning process to failure. It's a huge issue for the people of Australia. Why, when we need visionary leaders who believe in government and community most, have we got people who hate government and are giving the game away to the people who are destroying the place? That's a fundamental issue, and it comes right back to metropolitan planning. That's what we've got here. So we're not going to get a strong implementation plan because there'll be nothing to implement the way we're going. I think that's over to all of us and people like us to try to get in there and stand up for Melbourne and for the broader public interest, because it's not going to be protected otherwise.